Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us for this special summer series where we will introduce you to the HERO Project. HERO stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization and is focused on providing support for unique faith-based schools. These creative Christian learning environments, such as homeschool co-ops, microschools, and hybrid schools, are popping up all across Kansas and throughout the Heartland. The HERO Project offers continued support for this movement. I am your host, Delina Wallace, founder of the WISE Network and president of AIM Educational Collaborative. Welcome to our summer series of WISE and Otherwise, where we will be highlighting the unique role of the church in supporting a reformation in education through the HERO Project. Okay, today I am here with Josiah Enyart. He is from Freedom Learning Academy in the Kansas City area, and I've been to his school a couple of times and visited there. I know that he has a heart for kids and for quality education, and I would love to learn more about your story, why you started a school. So Josiah, tell us a little bit about what Freedom Learning Academy looks like and why you decided to start a school.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be here. I started a school in 2021 after working in the public school district around here, Shawnee Mission, for a dozen years as a third grade teacher, a fourth grade teacher, and a sixth grade teacher. Prior to that, I was in a modified Montessori private school. And then I coached at one of the high schools, coached baseball, and then ended up coaching a year in private school as well. But that cost me money, so that didn't work out. But poor coaches, they don't make much. And so after, teaching and then having a family, and then my kids started getting old enough to join the district, I just started paying attention a lot more to what was going on. So one of the big things that kind of started it was the spending sprees that would happen. So, they'd spend $20 million on putting an iPad or a MacBook in everybody's hands. All the administrators got stuff and the teachers had to use it. And that forced a lot of great teachers to early retirement for pretty much nothing, because we were told, this is the wave of the future. This is what we're doing. You're going to do it. Deal with it. And that was a really sad time because, one of the only other men in my building, I was the only man in my building for 6 or 7 years. But before that, Mr. Sweet was there, and he retired, and so did several other teachers, because trying to change what they've been doing for 30 years effectively to something brand new and changing the whole system was just a lot to ask. And so that's when the turnover started. All the new teachers kind of all came in, young, straight out of college, which nothing against that. But when you lose your veterans, no matter what the situation you're in, it changes things a lot. And so that was interesting to me that, a few people on the board made a decision for everybody, and we really had no say in it. And I didn't really see how it was going to help. I understand the technology initiatives, and I understand how the world is moving towards AI and using digital technology. And here we are talking digitally. But for learning, for kids who need to interact and be around people and socialize and learn by doing hands-on things, learning basic skills like writing and speaking, I didn't see the value in it that much. And then when it rolled out, there was no plan in place. The internet didn't work. There was no safety measures on the devices. Kids were able to look up whatever they wanted to look up, and then they'd put stuff on there, and then they wouldn't work at all. And then, of course, kids are savvy, and so they were able to find ways around all those anyway. And they just seemed to cause way more problems than solutions. And so that was one big thing. And then as that continued on, they also spent money on, in the sports world, buying a car, signing a contract with Under Armour. So Under Armour, great company, very expensive company compared to the networks we had built. We have people, all the coaches have a network of individuals and businesses that help us buy good materials, good resources, good equipment, good uniforms at an affordable price. And therefore our budget was still we still had money available to buy bigger things like the turtles or the big cages behind where we, take batting practice, and L screens and bounce back nets. And well, once the Under Armour contract came through, our budget was gone on uniforms alone. And we
Wow.
had no say in that. And the Under Armour stuff we got was not their best quality. The pants were ripping right away. And again, like all of our network, all of our people, we had to call and say, sorry, can't do business with you anymore. They won't let us. So that was, and again, the administrators all seemed to get something out of that. They had shirts and cool things to stick on their cars. The testing, the back and forth in all of our PDs, our professional developments. First it was, teach to the test, and we would have these testing assemblies, and then it was, no, we need to teach to the kid, and then it was, we're going to teach to the standards. The curriculums we have are just resources, and then they bring in a new curriculum and say, teach it with fidelity. And it's like, well, what is it? What do you want us to do? Like, do you want us to actually help these kids, or just, be mindless robots trying to get them to memorize this pointless information? Let's see. Then it went into the way they modified IEPs and 504s to include just about anything and everything, so that they could, the way I saw it was they basically were able to take any kids with issues, give them a piece of paper that said, okay, now they can do whatever they want, and we need to let them do that, and we're not responsible anymore. Because it took away accountability. It took away the paraprofessionals and the aides that had very specific jobs and were good at their jobs, loved their jobs, even though they still didn't make hardly any money. Not that teachers do anyway, but they were much lower than us even. And it basically made them room monitors, just lunch monitors. And then they got rid of MTSS. MTSS was our multi-tiered support system. And so that allowed us to group kids by ability, to put them in focused skill groups that could bring up or enhance whatever skills they had or needed. And again, all our paras, aides, they all got to have a group and build that group up. So they had purpose in their job and loved it. And the kids thrived. All of our kids, I was at the number one title school in our district. We had the highest mobility rate, highest poverty rate, highest free reduced lunch rate. And yet our kids still grew every year, from bottom to top. And then they got rid of MTSS because of inclusion. It wasn't inclusive enough to have everyone go to groups, even though none of them knew what groups they were going to, and it was effective for everybody, and everyone enjoyed it. And so instead they did push in. And so all the aides and paras pushed in and basically became room monitors and sat with the people, the kids that needed the help. And so now everybody knew who needed the help. And it's like, you wanted inclusivity, and now you completely excluded these kids because now everyone knows who they are. It's like the anonymity of going to groups was phenomenal. And you stripped them of that. And then the paras, they there goes the purpose and the, I guess, the empowerment of their job, where they got to come up with lessons and take kids through specific programs and monitor them and check them. And they just basically had to be a third wheel to the teacher. Hopefully the teacher now having more added to their plate to add plans for the paras and the aides, without any additional resources or any additional help or time. So that was just, again, more frustrating as a teacher. But then as a parent, when they brought in, all that was kind of like, okay, my kids, they were higher academically. They went Montessori, and we worked with them at home. And I don't think, I know lots of kids in that same boat. Parents are active at home with them, reading with them at night, and, giving them good early education just through experience and letting them be kids, but throwing in those academic things. And my daughter came into first grade and had an amazing teacher. She was teacher of the year that year, Miss Sahadio, and she continued to group the kids and challenge them, and she got them signed up for science projects, and she'd bring her mom in to sit with the kids and do groups so that she could have an extra. It was awesome. She still loved learning, my oldest daughter. And in second grade year, didn't go that way. It was not as an effective teacher, we'll say. She wasn't grouped. She was bored. She got a kid to stick his head in the toilet, so we had to stop watching Boss Baby. And how she ended up convincing him to do that. Like, he did it himself, but she dared him to. And so she got in trouble. That's fine. But it was like, I don't like seeing this. Why is this happening? And so I, started looking at the different programs the school had, started looking at the more in depth at the professional developments we were sitting in with the new deep equity program by Corwin that they brought in for our DEI initiative, and into that whole program itself, and just saw the absolute disaster it was going to be, and that it wasn't anything it claimed to be. It was all, in my mind, just a way to save face for any legal suits that came with diversity. Look what we have in place. Look what we're doing. But in the long run, it damaged the kids in the schools and the culture of the schools. And it put a bigger rift between the schools and the parents, which they already didn't let us have enough of a relationship. We couldn't communicate with parents on a regular basis. And, after athletics or something, a kid might need a ride home. We weren't allowed to do that, even if we were close with the parents. And I get the whole legal aspect, but the point of a community is coming together for the good of our future, and the kids are our future. So if we can't form a team of support around that kid with the families and the teachers and the families in the schools, then what are we doing? So then
it sounds like you have a huge list of things with the public school where you were teaching. And
I did, and I do. I still do, because it hasn't gotten any better. It's gotten worse. But anyway, the reason I start with all of that is all these things were accumulating prior to COVID. And then COVID hit, and that was a complete disaster. They didn't handle that right. Again, they didn't communicate with anyone. They spent money in dumb ways, and then they put unconstitutional health mandates on the kids and on the families and on the teachers. And it was a complete wasted year for the kids. So through all of these things, the ones suffering the most are the kids, right? Then the teachers and the families, and the ones getting the most out of it is the board and the administrators. And it was like, this is just getting to be, it was already pretty much unacceptable, but it was scary for a change, to say, okay, I'm just going to get out of teaching. And I got my master's in technology enhanced teaching, thinking, okay, maybe I'll go into administration. Maybe I'll leave the field altogether and go into construction. I don't know, because it was just getting to where I couldn't tolerate it anymore. Well, then my middle child started during the COVID situation, and we had her stay home, and then we had her go to school because my wife was working and I was working, and I hated that. I hated sending her to school, having to wear that cloth on her face all day long. And so we were trying to figure out something else to do with the kids, if we were going to homeschool, if we were going to find, but nothing else that we knew of other than homeschooling would accommodate to what we believed, that the kids did not need to wear the masks. They weren't at risk, and that this whole situation was being done completely, it was being done wrongly, but it was also being done unconstitutionally, and then with the deep equity stuff and how they implemented that through the COVID stuff, immorally. And so as a dad, I just wanted something else for my kids. So summer came after COVID, or after that first year where it was all online learning. And they said, okay, we're going to come back. Things are going to be good. This was all just word on the street between teachers, things like that. And then they sent an email in July saying, okay, change our minds. We're going to have K through 6 mandated to wear masks, a year and a half later. And we're going to let middle school through high school and teachers opt out with proof of vaccination. And that was, I basically immediately said, we're done. And showed my wife, was like, I'm pulling the kids. I can't keep working here. This isn't going to happen. So we took about 4 days to pray and talk about, what are we going to do with, I'm only a teacher, so I don't make much, but I am the breadwinner of the family. And if I get out of my career and find something else, we're going to have to make this work. And we were both like, okay, let's do it. It's going to work out. God's got it. So no big deal. So after the 4 days, I called my principal and said, I'm out. I wanted to give you as much time as possible. The email didn't come out till like July 26th. School started August 15th or something. So I'm like, it's almost 3 weeks. Wow. I hope that's enough to find somebody, but all they do now is hire from within. So they're just going to shift people around and find somebody. And, the job is just not that hard at this point, because outside of dealing with the behaviors of the kids and having to have patience, they basically give you a million things to do, and you just follow their rules, and you'll be, they'll be happy with you. And so I pulled my kids, I resigned, and we tried to figure it out. Well, through my resignation, they charged me a liquidation fee for resigning after my 2.5 month contract end date. So like instead of a 2 week notice, teachers have a 2.5 month notice you're supposed to give. And so I guess I renewed my contract, and they're like, well, since you did that, which they try to get you to renew the contract in January. And I get why they do that. Nothing against that system, I suppose. But for me, it's like, well, you just kind of changed the terms of my contract, and I'm not working for that, and I'm not having my kids there. And I can't pull my kids and keep working for you because I can't afford private school with what you pay me. So I went to fight that, and that drew attention. So the Sentinel picked it up, then Daily Wire picked it up, then Fox News picked it up, and it ended up being a national thing. And I shared all those many reasons on to why I was ready to get out of teaching, but obviously they only really cared about one, and it was the DEI stuff, which was huge and is huge, and I have no problem talking about that. And then COVID; those were like the two main things. But then they were big ones. So either way, I didn't care. I just didn't want to pay the $1,000 because I'm out of a job now, and it's not like we had a huge savings account. Well, enough people heard about it and wanted to help that somebody started a GoFundMe to help cover the liquidation fee. Well, that GoFundMe raised $26,000.
Wow.
And because of the notoriety from the story, I got calls from people who wanted me to teach their kids. Like they wanted me to hey, we don't want our kids in that situation either. We love that there's a teacher and a parent, somebody who's on the inside fighting back. How about we do something and we'll pay you to teach our kids? And I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay, maybe I could do that. So I researched the laws in Kansas and tried to figure out, talk to my wife, how can we do this? And, we have this basement in our house and it could easily be renovated into a school. And so within like 4 or 5 days of that first call, I had 15 kids, two of them being my own. My youngest was still going to a daycare at not Sunnyside. That's from like Toy Story. Sun something, but it was at a church up the street. So we were happy with his daycare. And my wife was still working. And so I had 2 of my kids, 13 others. And I wanted to start in 12 days. So my wife took the kids to Memphis to see her family, and I renovated the basement and made it a school. And during that time, I had people coming, and they were like, who were wanting me to be their kid's teacher. And I was like, okay, you have to have some vision here, because all of my stuff was in the garage. The basement was empty. It was concrete and wood, and I had paint all over me. I had wood all over the place. And after every single one, they were like, yes, sign us up. I'm like, really? I'm just some dude in a basement. But, but I think people were so hungry for something different. They were hungry for finding the right educational environment for their kid and for their family. They were sick of dealing with the politics of the public school system, of the indoctrination of the public school system, of the health mandates of the public school system, of the dangers for some of the kids of the public school system, just because of how little they would enforce rules and behavior modifications. And so, there was just so many people completely against putting their kids there, but also not having the money to send their kid to a $15,000 a year private school, not being able to homeschool, or maybe being able to homeschool, but not trusting themselves. And so it was more or less thrust into my lap than it was me going to get it. And that was the origin of the school.
You never had planned on or even envisioned or dreamed of someday having your own school. It was like never a thought. Wow.
Nope.
Okay. That is very interesting. Yeah.
But that's how it started.
And so how many years has it been now that since you've opened your doors?
We're going into our 4th school. Yeah. Okay. 2021 is when it started. So we just completed our 3rd school year.
That's great. And would you say that it's been fulfilling and rewarding in a way that you didn't expect, or is it just a lot of work?
I would say both. So that first year was one of the greatest of our lives. We absolutely loved it. And then there was no choice but to expand, because there were word spread, and more people were becoming aware of what's going on. And so I had, a wait list of like 60 people after just I would say February of that first year. So it's like, okay, let's
Wow.
figure this out. So, and I went to 18 during that first year because another couple schools like collapsed, and those parents called me. So I took 3 more kids, and I'm like, I have no more space. I can't fit any more kids in my basement. It's not a big house. I'm like, but I'll make it work. And so we expanded into that second year, and that's how we ended up in this building after looking at properties and realizing this is what we needed. And then this last year we had 47 kids, 48 at one point, and it just kind of keeps growing, and that's where it's become more difficult because I was teaching first through fifth grade, first through sixth grade, all in one room schoolhouse style. But in reality, if you're a public school teacher and you're teaching sixth grade, you've got first through eighth grade in your room. You're going to have kids who can't read, and you're going to have kids who are ready for middle school, high school stuff. And the difference though is they're all the same age, and so developmentally, most of them are pretty much the same. Just obviously everyone's different from their family upbringing and their cultures and so on and so forth. But when you have a 7-year-old and you've got a 12-year-old, you have a big difference in mindset and in behavior and just overall ability. And so differentiating for them was a blast, and it was really effective, and it was really fun. And then as we got bigger and I had to hire teachers, we shrunk that age gap down. We still had the age gap because we liked the leadership and the following opportunities of having younger and older kids, but kind of focused more on ability level so that the differentiating wasn't so spread out. And so I went from, just having my room, being in charge of everything, organizing the field trips, my parents all being really involved. And I have the most amazing parents. Everyone that joined was essential. My graphic designer, my web designer, or my art teacher. Everybody has like a very specific role, and it was just perfect. Nice. And as it's grown, it's become much more challenging because I'm trying to be a great teacher, but also the head of a school, and then having to have accounting, and then be the secretary, and then communicate with groups and other micro schools, and go to events. We'll just call them events where prominent people are interested in what we're doing. And so having to speak at those, and it's like, it's a lot because I still want to be a good dad, and I still want to be a good husband, and I want to be good at all those roles, but it's too many hats to wear and be effective at all of them. And then there's the money, once you start paying a lease and you've got a payroll and taxes, and, you up your insurance, and that's where it's become very stressful. But as far as rewarding goes, I continue to fall back on all the stories from the kids and from the parents on how life-changing it is to have something like this available. And so I think that's where the balance is, like finding a way to de-stress a little bit, but focusing on how important it is to have other options for these families.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so one of the things I like to pull out from people as we're learning, one of the things I was interested about with your school is that it happens to be meeting in a church facility right now. And I'm really big about church and school partnerships, especially the schools that are started by Christian founders. And I know you and I have talked about you being a believer and being strong in your beliefs and having biblical values and things like that. But I know that you're not calling it a Christian school. That's not your aim, is to provide faith-based education. Is that correct? It's more just you believe that that's for the past or the parents, right?
Right. So my philosophy, my wife and I's philosophy, and how we wanted to open a school was that I love the verse where Jesus says he didn't come to heal the healthy. He came to heal the sick. It's not the healthy that need a physician. It's the sick. I worked in public school for, 10, 11 years, and I worked for a private school prior to that. And that really let me see the reward of being a positive influence on people who wouldn't necessarily put their kids in a Christian school. Not that I think we need Christian schools. We need options at the church for that. But I didn't think my ministry was to have a Christian school. It was to have a school that more or less ran like the Constitution. I love my country. And I think that the Constitution itself is an amazing document that allows for, and the document itself is created as a Christian manifesto of morality, right? Like we all have equal rights and the right to pursue happiness, and the things that are in there are the same principles that the Bible teaches, but it gives leeway for those who come in and need to find their own way in that, because they support the principles, right? But they may not necessarily subscribe to the same God. And so for me, as a Christian, my job is to speak the truth, and I have that opportunity all the time, in public, at parties, at wherever we go, but for teaching other people's kids, what I saw as the need in our community was strong academics, character traits of successful people, virtues, so fruits of the Spirit, right? But done in a way that allows parents to not feel that they're right as parents to teach their children their family beliefs, their religious beliefs, their political beliefs, which is the right of every parent to their kid to pass down that family tradition, that family culture. I don't think it's the school or the teacher's job to get in the way of that. Now, if they want me to help bolster what they're already teaching at home because they see things the same way I do, and they give me permission as the parents, well, that's a whole different story. But I'm never going to just start talking to a kid about what I believe religiously or politically as right and wrong. Like there's ethical and moral arguments that can be made no matter where you are, what you believe. Nobody should be killing anybody else. That's just that's reason can figure that out. Human nature, right, we know is flawed, but we can use reason to figure that out. We don't have to say, because Jesus said this, and you need Jesus as your own personal Lord and Savior. That's for the parents, right? Or for the parents to talk to me and me to talk to them before I ever bring it to a kid. And that's my fear, was if I started something and I don't put something in place, and in this case, our guiding principles. Some people call it a quill, but I just called it our guiding principles. That says teachers won't teach their own personal, political, or religious beliefs. Then that gives anybody who could come work with me or start their own school under the same kind of format to teach those kids their own personal, political, or religious beliefs, which even if you're a Catholic, do you know how many different views of Catholicism there are, right? If you're a Christian, there's a lot of different views of Old Testament and New Testament. And, there's so many denominations. Like, how do you know my Christianity is the same as yours? Theoretically, it should all be the same, right? I mean, the Bible's the Bible, but that's not how, if you've been to several different churches, that's not how a lot of them see it. I wanted the parents to have the freedom to teach their kids the way they see fit. And I wanted me as a teacher to have the freedom to teach math, science, social studies, truth, academics, the way I saw fit. And there's a line between them that just can't be crossed. Now, if a parent wants to sign up for a Christian school, great, go for it. You know what you're getting yourself into. I just didn't want that responsibility as well, because I didn't see that as my mission field and the need that was needing to be met the most.
Sure. And for the church where you're meeting, it wasn't one of the stipulations or anything. They didn't need you to be.
No,
Did they ask
they were
about your
great.
statement of faith or anything like that?
Yeah, I gave them everything, and I told them, like, look, this is me. And you can look up anything you want. I'm an open book. I have a tendency to say too much usually, but I introduced myself. I told them what my goal was. I gave them our guiding principles. I gave them everything that there was to learn about the school. I told them what our mission was. I showed them the website, and I said, my goal is to provide a safe place for these kids to learn the academics that they need, to teach them how to be strong charactered individuals. And to let the parents do the rest. We're not going to be having Sunday school. I love that you guys do that. And so actually we have to reset the rooms every Friday and then every Monday, because they still use our rooms for Sunday school. But Baptist churches are built for school. Baptist churches are, Sunday school is their thing. And so they have these huge rooms, which, you can't see it obviously because you're just looking at my throne and the shelf in the back. But humongous rooms that
Yeah.
are tons of tables and chairs, but we like open floor space and letting the kids move. They're on large properties that usually have playgrounds, or they're around woods or a creek, and that's everything we needed. And since
Mm-hmm.
nothing else really existed that we could just move in ready to our own property,
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of perfect. And they were like, no, they're totally with us. We
That's
allow
great.
our teachers with concealed carry licenses and with practice hours to carry to protect the kids if necessary. Of course, we're at a church midday, so there isn't any real fear of that, but better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. We also have ring cameras in the room, so that if anything were to happen, the parents, the teachers, everybody can see the video. I mean, I can't think of any
Mm-hmm.
reason why that wouldn't be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And the church was like, yeah, we have security guards and we allow, them to carry, and we have members who do the same. The Baptist church is very pro America and pro
Yeah.
Constitution, and they
Yeah.
saw that that's what my goal was, that's what my aim was, and they supported that. And
That's
so I
great.
was very thankful.
Well, I love hearing kind of your origin story, your motives, all of those things. It sounds like you have an amazing program. I am interested to know, like, your own congregation or your pastor or some of the students who come. Do you feel support? Are they very supportive of the school that you're providing, and in what way do you see that?
Absolutely. I'm allowed to, I've got my business card up on the board of business cards and stuff for like church members with businesses and
Hmm.
things like that. And a lot of our whole small group, we run a small group of 7 other families with kids. And, they all love hearing stories, and we talk about it. 2 of them are homeschool families. The other ones go to public school, but we have great conversations. And everyone I've talked to at the church is very supportive and loves that there's other options. I would say that the most aware people of what's going on in public school are those that go to church, because there's no real way to, we're in the world, we're not of it, but you can't not pay attention to what's going on, especially if you have kids or grandkids in it. And so,
Hmm.
the people who have a strong faith or a strong family want to make sure that they're doing what's best for the people around them. And so they'll investigate and they'll look and see what's really going on, and they'll
Hmm.
listen to other sides. And, because they've got patience and kindness and perseverance and integrity and self-control, they can reason with those things. And they have discernment and wisdom. And so it's like, I haven't met anyone at my church that hasn't been all for it. All my pastors are
Oh,
always
that's
asking
great.
about it. And so it really is, I think, I agree the church needs to be more involved. I was thinking that I'm kind of a loud person. So when COVID was happening and they had, every other row cut off, and I'm like, look, people want to come to church and meet together with believers. Like we don't have a spirit of fear, but of love and power and a sound mind. So, like, I get the whole health thing, but the point of being a church and having separate, um, the tax exempt status and some more freedom from the government than typical businesses is you can
Hmm.
make decisions based on the Bible and based on discernment and based on, what the Holy Spirit's telling you. And so, I think education is a great way to step out and speak up as the church. And
Hmm.
yeah, so I feel
Yeah.
that they have in this case.
That's great. Okay, so in closing here, do you have any specific needs or requests and ways that you would like to see the body of Christ kind of support you in your efforts? Because I see those who are starting these amazing learning environments. They are high quality and they are providing options for kids that can no longer be in the public school. So, if there are people who want to support you, in what way can that happen? And how would you like to see that kind of materialize?
Uh, I think there's 3 things that I've contemplated and discussed with people in my small group, particularly. One is we went to our church because they had a school in part of the building, and we wanted to use it for more of a homeschool co-op. But they also have to deal with the business side of things. right? So they have, every church has their board and has their deacons, and they have somebody who's in charge of the building and the finances and the money coming in and going out. And, to be able to use the space wasn't affordable for us.
Mm.
And that was a little disappointing. I understood it. I'm not upset. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, if churches have the space, because there have been other churches that I've encountered and other pastors I've talked to who open their space to homeschool co-ops and open their space to the educational environments of some of their church members, plus people who aren't in their church. For me, it's a benefit for them because more people are going to be entering your space, and they're coming into a good, safe, blessed space. And that could only increase your, congregation. And I think when you are generous and you're a cheerful giver, that you'll be given back tenfold or sevenfold. But either way, it's going to be beneficial for the church to have the space available. And so, yeah, I lease this space. It's very expensive. And we are fully tuition funded by the parents. We don't get any outside funding. We did apply for a grant last year or the year before. I don't remember. And there's other, I guess, donation options that we can hunt and seek out and try to get. But for the most part, the biggest hindrance on every other school I've talked to, because we meet with several other micro schools, is that the lease payments of where we're at, whether it's the church, whether it's an office building that we're renting or leasing. That makes it really hard to make it affordable for parents and for the teachers to continue making a living. And so financially, it's very stressful. So space is one. Just if they have the space, it's not being used during the week, being open to meeting with people and letting that space be used. The second one is even if it's just storage. So like I also have a storage facility because I can't store all my stuff here. And I've got 4 classrooms, and then we have to clean them all out for VBS. And then I have to take that all to a storage unit and pay a $300 a month storage fee. So it's like, what about, there's a lot of spaces at different churches that aren't being used, sheds, back buildings that are just have space that if they were open to say, yeah, you can use our area for storage. We won't charge you anything. Just here's the timeline, just being open to the space for storage.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I can't justify asking the church to take, offerings for schools, but the biggest hindrance on any of these schools is finances, because of leases, payroll, taxes. It's not a really sustainable model. The public school system out here is getting $17,000 a pop. That's what the kids are worth to the state. If I charge $17,000 for what we're providing, I wouldn't have anybody, and I'd be an idiot. So to make it affordable just takes more money, or it takes people who are willing to, if they have the finances, to provide donations, or for the churches to provide space, storage that helps the schools save money so that tuition can stay low enough for parents to pay, and also for the teachers to pay for their food for their kids.
Right. Yes. So the HERO Project, Heartland Education Reformation Organization, is trying to raise awareness of schools that are out there in the community, and these private schools, these options for churches that want to be supportive. And we actually put, kind of an invitation out there. There's 3 ways for them to get involved. One is to open up their space and allow schools to meet there. Number 2 would be to sponsor an existing faith-based school in the community. And then the third option is to provide scholarships for students to attend these schools.
Yeah.
So, I think that the more that we tell this story of what people are doing, what the options are, it's kind of going to whet the appetite for families as well. Like, they don't know what they don't know. But as soon as they start to see that they have a better option or a different option than what they have been told, or they've kind of just resigned to this fact of, well, I guess this is all we can afford, this is all we can do. So, so my desire is to help families know of their options and to make them more accessible, and to kind of bring the church on board a little bit more and activate them
Right.
in this movement. So I appreciate you coming and telling your story. And I love that you are just being faithful in what you know you should do for your own kids and your family and your community. And keep up the good work. It's great.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, this concludes our episode of Wise and Otherwise, and we will see you next week.